Hey guys, welcome to the video. So let's look at some Python IDEs, which are integrated development environments. I have an article here, which I'm going to pull up. I'm going to read the article, and then I'm going to comment along the way so you get the perspective of a 169-year-old nerd. So let's jump into it. 5 powerful IDEs for writing analytics and data science code. So I'll just read the overview. Picking a Python IDE is an important choice for any analyst, data scientist, or programmer to make. Here are 5 Python IDEs that are popularly used in the analytics and data science industry. All right. Coding can be a personal experience for any data scientist, any business analyst, etc. We create something from scratch that works and acts as the heart and soul of any analytics or data science project. And most of us have our own way of writing Python code, right? This is true. That's why when I talk to people about programming language choices, as a general rule, with some very rare exceptions, I am very neutral about the programming languages because each has their own pros and cons. I keep telling people that. And so, largely it's a personal choice. And that comes down to any technology, really, including IDEs. And a coding environment, or an IDE as it's called, plays a huge role in programming circles. An IDE, which we'll talk about in more detail later, helps us write and execute Python code for analytics, data science, blah, 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 and a plethora of other tasks. But which IDE or tool you should use? So just in case you don't know, an IDE is short for Integrated Development Environment, and basically it's a piece of software that makes writing code much easier. It has all kinds of tools built into it, debugging, code completion, etc. Now, some of the more advanced tools will use AI to do code completion. And all code completion is you'll start writing some common function or method name, some chunk of code in Python or Java or JavaScript, whatever. And the IDE, the program that you're using to write your code, will be able to guess what it is you're trying to write, and will give you suggestions. So instead of having to write out the whole name of a function, for example, which could be a very long thing to type out, you type out the first 3 letters, and then it says, oh, this is what you want to write out, and it completes it, and you hit enter, and it writes it for you. So writing code becomes like this. At the same time, because the IDE is completing the code for you, it's not doing any typos, right? It's not writing any typos. A big part of errors, by the way, when you're writing code, a lot of the bugs come down to typos. Sometimes you have logical errors, where there's a logical problem with the way you're structuring your code. Sometimes it's just clerical errors where you just mistype something. So one of the advantages of the IDE that it's able to in real time analyze the code that you're writing, and it will tell you where you're mistyping variable names or function names, etc. So it's a very useful tool. When I first started writing code, I was a tough guy back in the 90s, where I said, I'm just going to write it with a plain text editor. And I thought wrongly that was going to force me to become a better coder because I would have to type out everything. But when I finally moved over to an IDE a couple of years later, I realized how much more productive I was with an IDE, and how the IDE actually helped me to learn how to code much more quickly, because it showed me the various options. So I started discovering, like, especially in the Java world, where the Java world was vast, I started discovering all kinds of capabilities within Java classes that I had been using, and I only knew 1 or 2 of the methods. And I said, oh, I could do this, I can do this, I do this. And the IDE was teaching me all that. So it was a kind of a good tool. Anyway, let's go back to the article. There we go. If you have just begun coding and are new to Python, then a simple, lightweight code editors are a great way to start learning. Why is it a great way? Because you don't have to learn the complexity of some of these code editors. Some code editors are extremely powerful but complex. So when you're first starting out, you don't want to learn a powerful code editor at the same time as you're learning the language, because that's two things you got to learn at the same time. You should start off with a very simple code editor when you're first learning. Once you get back past your fundamentals in the language, then you can choose whatever IDE that floats your boat. You have to deal with everything on your own, from writing complete code to debugging the program itself. Sure, it teaches you a lot. Yes and no. I kind of like using the tools. But as you start to work with bigger analytics and data science projects or any software, or lots of interrelated scripts and complex code, you will have to move to development and to a development environment that can handle the nitty-gritty for you while you scratch your head over the more important stuff. This is where the IDE comes in. So let me translate that and comment quickly. One of the powers of Python is that it has many business use cases. It's used for web app creation, data analytics, AI. It's used in scripting. So for example, a friend of mine works for an animation studio, and they use Python to control all the rendering software. I'm not sure, I think it's 3D Studio Max. And so they use the Python script to control all the rendering software, and it's a big job, and they got thousands of scripts running around. So they're using Python not to write a program, not to write an application, but they use it to control a very big, powerful application. So they have full-time Python programmers who just keep the rendering software and the rendering farms up and running efficiently. And so that's one use of Python. Python's strength is its flexibility, is its wide array of use cases. It's more of a market level advantage rather than a technical advantage, I would argue, if that makes any sense. So what I'm trying to say by that is that Python is so popular, not necessarily because it's technically superior to other languages. It's much more about how broad of a use case it has. So you see Python used in animation software. It's used in AI. It's used in data analytics. It's used in web app development. It's used in basic scripting and server automation. It's all over the place. It's very good at what it does. It's not the best at anything in general, I would say, although some people might argue that point. But anyway, so now you know why Python is so popular. All right, let's get into it. Well, amongst other reasons, it's easy to learn, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, in this article, we will explore some of the more popular Python IDEs in the market and what each tool brings to the table. There's a lot to unpack, so let's get going. So he talks about his segments or his chapters, whatever. What's an IDE? I'd cover that. And then he looks at these different IDEs: Jupyter, Spyder, PyCharm, PyDev, Visual Studio. Which is the best for you? So as you see, there's several IDEs out there, and there's others. There's one that's built into Python. It's quite simple, but I teach with. Anyway, what's an IDE? I'll just cover this quickly. IDE, or Integrated Development Environment, brings all the different aspects of writing code under a single umbrella: code editor, compiler, interpreter, debugger. IDEs make it easier to start programming new applications quickly without having to set up different utilities and learn different tools to run a program. So code editor is basically the part of the program that allows you to write code. It has all kinds of tools for that. Compiler, interpreter, that just basically runs the code. Debugger is tools that helps you to find and track down bugs in your code. So this is for beginners. I just wanted to point that out. Anyway, the debugger tool inside IDEs is a boon that helps us examine variables and inspect code. This helps us to isolate the error that is really bothering our otherwise brilliant code. Some IDEs also give us a capability to unit test our code to ensure it runs in every scenario. So let me explain very, very quickly what a unit test is. A unit test is basically a chunk of code that you write around your core code, and it basically is like a guard, a security guard, if you will, in the sense that it will check to make sure that as you're writing code, your unit test will check to make sure that you haven't broken any code that you've written before. You implement unit test, in my opinion, once you have a chunk of code that's solid and you have a solid part of the system, meaning it's not going to be changing too much. If you try to implement unit tests too early on in the process, you're going to be writing a lot of extra code for nothing, because you're going to have to rewrite your unit tests as the application evolves. So I'm a big believer in unit tests, but for a little bit more mature or a little bit more down the road in terms of your application development cycle. But anyway, it's another story. IDEs also have intelligent auto code completion recommendations to anticipate what we are going to type next. Although this definitely has the ability to make us lazy programmers, it inevitably saves us time while writing programs. I don't think it makes you lazy. I think it just speeds you along. Listen, there's so much code to write. There's unlimited code to be written. There's unlimited problems to be solved. When you're writing code, you're just solving problems at the end of the day. So don't worry about being a lazy coder. If you find a tool that speeds the process up, trust me, you got plenty of other things to write and code with, so don't worry about that. But I understand the sentiment. I used to be there. So with that backdrop, we'll start exploring various Python IDEs and unravel the capabilities of each. So I'm just going to go over this very quickly. I'm going to skim through this article, and then I'm going to link to the article so this guy gets some credit. And then you can take it from there. So Jupyter was introduced in 2014. This is the first IDE. And is a successor to IPython. It is a web application based on a server-client structure, which is free, open source, and easy to use. Its name is a reference to 3 core programming languages supported by Jupyter: Julia, Python, and R. These are all data science, academic oriented type of languages. Well, R, Julia. Well, they use in production. I'll take that back. But anyway, these are more very specialized languages, these two here, R and Julia. Never used them. But Jupyter supports over 40 programming languages. There you go. You see that with a lot of IDEs. They support a lot of programming languages. Most data scientists have worked with Jupyter notebooks at some point or another in their lives because of the functionalities and the ease of use it offers. But the classic Jupyter notebooks are getting a makeover with the text generation JupyterLab launched in 2018. It is a web-based IDE for data science that serves as a great starting place for data science beginners. And there you go. If you're into data science, if you're not a data scientist, and you're thinking of getting into data science, then you probably have to get a degree to become a data scientist. And if you're just looking to get to making money quickly, I would become a web stack developer personally, but that's just me. You may love the data scientist, maybe the type of code that you like to do. Jupyter provides an interactive output, which means you can write code and test it there and then. This becomes extremely useful when you are a beginner and just starting out your journey in machine learning and data scientists. Exactly. Yeah. As I said before, a lot of these IDEs, they speed up the learning process because they kind of guide you as you go. In addition to writing your Python code, you can generate great notebooks. It contains visualizations, text, explanations using the Markdown editor, which enables you to write even latex equations. I don't know what that is because I'm not a data scientist. So we'll go on here. So you got JupyterLabs. JupyterLabs comes bundled with the Anaconda distribution. This makes it very easy to install Jupyter and other IDEs that will cover this and other IDEs that we will cover in this article. It's available for Linux, Windows, macOS, so all you have to do is head over to this website and download the version based on your OS. So it's free. Next one, Spyder. Never heard of this one. Spyder or Scientific Python Development Environment, that's probably why, is a lightweight, free, and open source Python IDE. It is complete written Python designed exclusively for data scientists and analysts. That's why I've never heard of it, because I'm not a data scientist. Its interface is very basic. When you compared to other IDEs, but it has all the necessary components we look for in a coding environment. It consists of a text editor, a file explorer, variable explorer, and IPython console, all in a single window. I'm not sure what they mean by that. Anyway, it has built-in integration with many popular scientific packages, including NumPy, SciPy, Pandas, IPython, and other. Okay, so it's a package. Again, I'm not a data scientist. Python, like so many other languages, is huge. So, I don't know 10% of the modules. Not too many people do. Anyway, so let's go on. So now we know that Spyder is more or less for specialized data scientists. Okay, PyCharm. Again, I'll link to the article so you can go read the details. PyCharm is by one of my favorite companies in the space, JetBrains. They create amazing IDEs. The company behind the popular IntelliJ IDE for Java, that's the first one I used actually from JetBrains. It was revolutionary in its day. It is a great IDE to try out if you're looking to work on a project containing multiple scripts interacting with each other. Let's list some of PyCharm's key features that make it such a popular IDE among developers. I'm just going to do the first three and then we'll move on. PyCharm's code editor is second to none. It has syntax and error highlighting, code analysis, and quick fixes for instantly improving your code. Additional features like code auto generation, auto indentation, code folder, etc. make it incredibly comfortable to learn to code with PyCharm. When starting a new project in PyCharm, you can choose from different environments like virtual env, virtual environment, pip environment, or Conda, which help make dependencies required by different projects separated by creating isolated Python environments for each. Okay, so let me translate that into non-nerd. Software development, a big part of it is you're going to have, as I talk about all the time, it's not just about the code, it's about the environment around the code. And many times you have to do specific things to make sure that all the elements of that environment are available for you as you're writing your code. So PyCharm does a lot of this automatically for you. So it has a lot of capabilities. So I'm going to scroll on. PyDev, this article on Python IDEs would be incomplete without writing about Eclipse. Eclipse, okay. Which has a huge developer community and a plethora of plugins available to add functionalities to the IDE. PyDev IDE is a Python IDE for Eclipse. It was developed in 2003. It was made open source in 2009. It can be used in Python, Jython, and Iron Python development. Jython is this Java implementation. Here are some of my favorite features of PyDev. Provides code completion, blah, blah, blah. On-the-fly code analysis that finds common errors like undefined variables, unused variables, imports, duplicate signatures, bad indentation, much more. Yeah, just like this, and this in the Python world is going to save you a lot of headaches. Refactoring capability like renaming variables, method classes, attributes, extracting methods and variables, and also inlining variables. Okay, refactoring. I should have highlighted all this. Sorry, this is what I was reading here. Let me talk about quickly. Refactoring is a process of cleaning up your code, and I talk about how you refactor as you write your code. When things are fresh in your mind, when you see an obvious piece of your code that needs to be refactored, which is basically a nerd way of saying you're cleaning up your code, that's when you do it. Anyway, all right, so let's go on because this video is getting long and we're going to have to wrap this up. Visual Studio. All right, so Visual Studio is Microsoft. Wait, Visual Studio for Python. What's going on here? Visual Studio, or VS, is another great open source IDE for Python developed by Microsoft, but it is only available on Windows and Mac OS users. It has a free community version, paid professional enterprise version. It is lightweight. It comes with its own marketplace for extensions. Microsoft just added new extensions. Visual Studio Code provides support for building Python web applications using Django and Flask, and data science applications with built-in Conda and LPython support. I think it's LPython, excuse me. Again, I'm not a data scientist. Visual Studio for Python has its own features that set it apart from other IDEs. Visual Studio's code editor is guided by IntelliSense syntax, which provides auto-completion capability, type hints for functions, classes, signature help, quick info tooltip, code coloring. They also now use an AI, I believe, with Visual Studio Code. It has code snippets to insert code fragments into your files through shortcuts. VS has a host of pre-configured formatting options in addition to the default PEP8 style formatting. PEP8 is basically the guidelines that the Python community has put out for writing code. Anyway, which is the best for you? It depends, it depends what you want to do. He says, there's really no universal answer to this question. It all depends on your needs and requirements. So I'll end it there because this is a long video. But there you go. I should have highlighted that. There's no real universal answer. Here we go. Sorry about that. So there you go. I hope you found this useful. I will link to the article below this post so you can read all the details. I hope this was helpful, and thanks for watching.